Hey everybody, and hopefully today will go smoothly. I'm just getting over a nasal infection and a little bit of chest cough. I got one boy in bed, I got two that haven't gone to bed yet, I got dogs that like to bark, and I got two women in the house who are talking and laughing in the other room. So hopefully this will go okay. Today was supposed to be my everyday carry pen. The Lamy Safari in the petrol color, which I've got, and I kind of like it. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I actually spent less time writing with this than I did with one of my new pens. For me, it can be like Christmas. I actually had several pens arrive today, two of which are right here on my desk, and you come to think of it, a third one, which I kind of have back here that I can share with you today. I got a Conklin in the mail today. So my Conklin Durograph is going to be my next thing to play with. Maybe that'll be my everyday carry pen for tomorrow. But what I've been dealing with are a couple of Esterbrooks. I mentioned earlier in one of my videos about Esterbrook, and I didn't know what to think about Esterbrook. I didn't know anybody who really owned any. I didn't know anybody who really collected them. I've run across a few since I started actually looking at Esterbrooks. But they're an American pen manufacturing company that's no longer in business, and I believe that they were out of New Jersey. I don't have a whole history. Let's be honest, you didn't tune into this video to hear the history of that pen company. But you can find Esterbrooks online. I didn't know what I'd think about vintage pens. I got some newer pens in my collection, and I added a few older ones. I was almost turned off to older pens when I got a Schaefer Imperial. It didn't work, and I had a horrible time trying to get it to work. Did some research, figured out how to change out an ink sac. Did a little bit of research on how to clean it up some, and try to get it. And I finally got it writing, and then it just stopped writing on me a little while ago. So I was kind of turned off to it. Not to mention the fact that I'm not much on lever action pens. Just not a fan of them, at least from my experience thus far. So when I saw an Esterbrook online, I went ahead and I put in a bid for it on eBay. And Esterbrooks, depending upon from whom you are buying, you can get a couple of dollars, 15, 20, 30 bucks. So I've been getting mine for about $10 a piece, thereabouts, maybe less. Today's mail had two of them that I got together, I think, for 15 plus shipping.
$1 million.
I already gotten this one here. It's actually a lot prettier in person than I thought it was when I looked at it online. And so what I did was, I checked it out, I changed out the ink sac, and it was only my second ever attempt at changing an ink sac, so it wasn't perfect, but it worked. And in the nib, when I looked up the nib number, one of the things I do is I keep a spreadsheet that, courtesy of Dave over at Big Boot on Pens, I keep track of my pens and my ink. Thank you, David, for your work on that. You've been helpful for me with your reviews, as well as the resources that you've supplied, and I hope to meet you soon. But looking at the spreadsheet that he's got, I added to it some information that I've gotten from other sources. For instance, some of the things that I've added to it in different tabs, just to keep it all under one document for everything. I've got a list of all the cartridge converters that are out there, and or at least what companies take proprietary and which ones take standard international. So that would be helpful to me. Well, also I found a resource that had all these Esterbrook nibs, because Esterbrook has a ton of nibs, and that's what I really liked about them. And looking at the nibs that I had, this one, when it came supposedly with a fine nib, and it was meant for accounting and that sort of thing. And I was like, geez, I may have to do something about that. Well, the nib wrote really well. I mean, I was surprised. It actually wrote more like a medium. And it writes better, or at least more ink, than a medium that I've got now in an Esterbrook. So, it polished up really nice. It writes really nice. So I was really happy with it. And let's see if you guys can see that. This isn't the greatest camera in the world, but you know, it does the job. And I've used this actually for TV work as well. So, but it's got a little bit older. Well, today, besides this one, no, I didn't just pick up the same pen twice. This came in the mail today. This is another Esterbrook J. And it is like the twin of the other one. So they have got the same kind of gray marble going on. And I need to do a little bit of work on this one, just a little bit. But I have not inked this one up yet. But I did put a new nib in it. One of the things about these two pens came together in the same auction for like $15 on eBay.
$100 billion.
I knew that they were going to be used. They were probably not in the greatest of shape, but I took it as a challenge for me personally. Yeah, I got a cough drop on my mouth, so. But I took it as a personal challenge to see if I can get it going. I had ordered like 3 ink sacs when I first went to go try on my Schaefer Imperial. You know, I needed 1 ink sac. Well, knowing me and how I do home service projects and things around the house, I better get 3. So I've used all 3 of them now because this one here, the ink sac was all brittle and it came off really easily. I was surprised how well and easy and clean the ink sac came off on that one. In this one, the ink sac is actually still intact. It is still supple. I was surprised at what good shape this ink sac was in. But one of the things I did was I had ordered some nibs, and you can find them on eBay. And I had someone in a bidding war over just one 2668 nib. I chose 2668 because it's a general writing medium nib. I personally like medium nibs. I'm not a big fan of fine nibs. I like my nibs a little wetter. I like my ink a little wetter when I write. My pen's just a little juicier, to use some of the terms that other people have used. So this little thing here, see if you can see it, is their 2668 medium nib. And so what I did was I bought 2 of these from an eBay auction. There was actually one guy who was bidding on one, and it was cheaper for me to get 2 of them from somebody else. So I just said, forget that. He can win that auction, or all I care. So I got 2 of them for about the same price. Well, just to play games, what I did was I took the one that I had, the pen I already had, and I liked the nib on it. It did okay. It skipped just a little bit. Once every great while, if you hold it at a different, you kind of roll it a little bit, it'll skip. So I said, let me see if I can change the nib on this one. So I took a new nib, I put it on this. I took that nib off from this, and I put it on this one. And I took the other new nib, still new in the box, and I put it on this one, the one I haven't inked up yet. Well, this one actually writes pretty good, but, it writes more like a fine than a medium, and the medium writes more like a fine. So let me show you a little bit of my writing sample that I did. This one up here, the top, is the first Esterbrook that I got. And I got the Noodler's Bad Black Moccasin ink, and it wrote fairly juicy, I thought, for what was supposedly a fine, stiff nib. Okay, fine. So here's what I ran across today. That exact same pen with a different nib. This is the same Esterbrook J with the different nib. So it still has the Noodler's Bad Black Moccasin, but I got the 2668 nib in it instead. And it wrote fairly well, but it wrote a little finer, I thought, than the other one. Matter of fact, that same nib that I put onto the black one, well, this is my black one here. And it's got that same, the 2556 nib that supposedly is listed as being a fine nib for accounting. Writes more like a medium, writes a little wetter, even in that other, quote, new pen, or at least new to me. The pretty cool thing about it is, I inked that one up. this black one with that nib, even with a different ink, just to see if it would write any differently with that same nib in a different pen. So I put my old faithful Diamine Onyx Black that I picked up, just a little bottle like that. When I was looking for a black ink, it was fairly inexpensive, and it was Diamine. I mean, can't go wrong. And the bad black moccasin that I got is in one of these little things from Goulet Pens, about $1.25, and you can get yourself a sample. And I think so far the bad black moccasin is probably my favorite black ink thus far. I like the way it looks, I like the way it writes. Although that Diamine is actually pretty good. I kind of like it. So, I can't go wrong with those two inks. This is the one that I wanted to share about. This one was roadkill. It sure looked like it was roadkill when I first got it. You know, they're basic pens. They're nothing special. They're not like the dollar pens, but you know, this is the one that I had to replace. I had to replace the ink bladder, and it went pretty well. I thought. I can't complain. Folks over at Independence is where I ordered my my stuff from, to some of my supplies, and I've been happy. And I'll probably see them at the Raleigh Pen Show coming up. But I put on that new nib here. Now, this thing was scuffed. I mean, dirty, scuffed up. It was sold as unused. Excuse me, untested, used, and it was in really, really rough shape. The nib wasn't in bad condition from what I could tell. That nib is still over here in that little baggie I showed you. And I can't really complain too much. But what I wanted to do was put in a nib that I knew was good, and save those other two in case I ever need them or and want to test them. But this one here, I mean, I like the lacquered black. I mean, I've got pens that are lacquered black finish, and they always look classy. But this one here, like I said, was really scuffed. I wish I'd taken a really good before picture. And what I did was I simply took this stuff here. This is just some turtle wax lens cleaning or clarifying compound. I used this when I tried to buff out the headlamps with some of the scuffing on my car. Didn't work real well on the car because I guess most of the problem was actually on the inside of the headlight rather than the outside. But it's a buffing compound. So I figured, well, I can try that on my pen. What have I got to lose? I mean, first of all, it's an old, scuffed up, scratched pen. It's a dull, dulled up finish. And I'm the only one who's going to know the difference one way or another. So I took it as a challenge, and I got out my Dremel tool. And got one of those little round pads and stuck it on the end of the Dremel tool. I don't have any that are stuck to the little thing that rotates. I just have an empty post, and I stuck that thing down on top of it. And I learned the hard way not to leave it on the high RPMs, take it down to the lowest RPM setting on the adjustable Dremel that I used to do some woodworking with once in a while. Obviously, I'm not trying to do woodworking, I'm trying to buff this thing out. But it came out nice and clean and shiny, and you can still tell there's scuffs. You can still tell that there are scratches on it, but it looks immensely better than what it did when I first got it. So I'm actually kind of proud of myself. I am not a professional. I tinker with it. I don't try to sell pens to make a living. I just decided I'm going to learn a few things. And that's why I kind of took up this hobby, because I wanted to learn a little bit and teach myself. Who knows, maybe when I retire I'll open up some little pen shop and maybe do some basic repairs, but that's not why I'm doing this. I did it just as a personal challenge and as a hobby. So this buffed out really well. I was surprised. It's never going to look perfect, and if I find something to be able to buff it with that looks better, that'll make it and take out a lot of these scrapes or these little scratches, then maybe I will. I certainly don't want to practice on my Mont Blanc in case I get scratches and buffs on it. I don't want that one to be the first one that I play with and try to do that with. I want it to be something I paid $7.50 plus shipping to get. And none of my Jinhaos are all scuffed up and beat up, so I'm not going to practice on those right now. And I figured this is one of those, what have I got to lose pens, so why not? So, why am I bringing this up? Why am I saying this? Alright, for those of you who are newbies, who are just learning, if you find something that you like, then try it out. I've got bids in on eBay right now on some pens, one of which I know is broken. On a broken Waterman Karen where the nib is bent, and I know what it's going to take to get that fixed. It's not going to be cheap, but by the time, if I win that auction, if I get that on the cheap the way it's looking so far, I'm going to get a new nib section because it's going to be a bear to take them apart, and I can't. And I'm not going to send them to overseas to get it done and pay someone else to do it. But a new nib section for me is about $100 to get it here, which is still going to be a whole lot cheaper than getting it fixed by somebody else. So I can just get a whole new nib section and put it on there, and I'll have a Waterman Karen for $110. So I look at things that way, and that would make a good gift for somebody because it's still new in a box. Just someone really damaged the nib. I figured, what the heck with this one? I may give this one. Matter of fact, I offered this one to my 14-year-old son today. Instead, you know what he wants? He wants a Jinhao 599. Number one, he likes this. He actually likes my Lamy Safari. My wife tonight, she had her purple Lamy Safari when we were at a meeting with the school system for our son. And I gave my 7-year-old a red Jinhao 599, and he thinks he's something special because he's got his own fountain pen. And I've got a bunch more 599s on the way, and so when I get those, I use those as giveaway pens just to get people interested in the fountain pen hobby. So anyway, I got a nice little family now of Esterbrooks. My family tripled in size just today. It was like Christmas for me. And then, my Conklin today too, which I'll talk about some other day because I haven't even really written with it other than to test it. But don't be afraid to pick up some pens. And I'll be honest with you, Esterbrook's, I kind of like them. After I got my first one, I wrote with it. I was like, whoa, this is awesome. This is cool. This is what a fountain pen should be. And now that I see that there are a bunch more out there, I even get some bids on some others just so I can get more and add them to my collection. And I see some people have got huge collections. I got nowhere near that. But so far I've been having fun playing with American-made Esterbrook pens just for fun. And you can too. Don't be afraid to play with, especially some older pens. What I call is what have I got to lose pens. So enjoy.